Okay, I can see the stream. I can hear myself typing. Right on. It's working. All right. Well, welcome to Playtesting the Wizard Civilization. Hi, Starhelm. Hi, Phil. I assume that Filter Mail is the Phil I know so well. Yeah, so Phil is the creator of the Wizard Civilization for How to Host a Dungeon. Great. I'm glad you can hear me. Um, it was just a mix-up in my audio settings. It's amazing how audio and video it's always a challenge. I use Skype for business at work every day, and anybody who's ever used Skype can, I think, sympathize with how painful that can be. So the Wizard Civilization. This is a civilization that Phil actually came up with for the old How to Host a Dungeon, based on some idea of, hey, why don't we have a civilization that starts on the surface? And wizards are cool, so let's make them wizards. If that's a misrepresentation, Phil, you can correct me, but that was my perception. But first, I want to start to actually pull out this sketch. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see it a bit better. The other out. Yeah, so this is actually a concept art sketch that I did for the Wizard Civilization. I've been doing these for all of the different civilizations. So it's a little bit blurry in this, but basically I've got across the top some kind of different wizard concepts, right? We've got some kind of space agey, some medieval castle, some crystals, kind of weird mushroom house, like a skull thing. Very much inspired by the webcomic Kill 6 Billion Demons. If you haven't checked it out, it's pretty awesome. Got a little floating island with a dome, a little bit of maybe Talisman to floating city style there, and then this kind of ziggurat thing. And then I've got some different wizards over here because who says that your wizards have to be wizardy guys? Here's a wizardy guy with a sword, Gandalf style. We got kind of a robot, very much this kind of a sorcerer kind of guy, I think, and a weird robed figure, and then just some various cool buildings that are kind of wizard civilization inspired. Maybe I can get that up there a little bit better so you can see it. Thank you. Yeah, Phil, I share your experience of Twitch, and I'm not sure if the interface is not that good or if I just have expectations based on the fact that, I'm more than 40 years old, and the average Twitch user, I think, is 18 to 25 years old, so they just do things differently. But anyway, let's get started. Yes, no Philaros on Twitch. Yeah, I definitely didn't get Tony D, but I'm pretty happy with Tony D Seattle. Everybody who knows me immediately knows who I am when I show up in their chat and start talking. So how was everybody's week? This was kind of a crazy one for me. My daughter's getting ready for school. Work is getting ready to be crazy for the month of September. Luckily, I have a little bit of time to do some Twitch this evening. I really want to try this civilization out again. I did one test of it and it went pretty well. Now I want to do another one. Yeah, that's a good point, right? So the thing with the wizard civilization, I'll give a little background now. They start above ground, but their civilization gets buried. So it's a trope on the classic tale of the buried empire. Like Pompeii, sort of I know Irem is the city in the Arabian Nights that is buried in the sands, so it's kind of that idea. So one of the things with the wizard civilization is you start, normally when you do How to Host Done, you start with your surface line. With the wizard civilization, you actually want to start with a bigger surface area because your civilization is going to get buried, which is a change. And it's a weird thing because in the current draft of the rules, you do your primordial age first, then you choose your civilization. So I'm actually thinking of making a change where you choose your civilization first, and then you have a primordial age that is a little bit customized to it. So if it's wizards, you'll have more space here for the wizard buildings. If it's dwarves, you'll always have something for them to mine. If it's deep elves, then there'll be monsters and things for them to exploit because they do well when that kind of stuff is on the map. And I think that's actually kind of a cool change that I hope I'll get in the next draft of the rules that should be up pretty soon. Oh yeah, I forgot about Greyhawk too. Do you remember what those civilizations were? My Greyhawk lore is a little ancient. Happy birthday, Starhelm! Awesome. Did you get any good gaming loot? All right, so let's do a primordial age here. So the first thing we do is we roll some dice. Hey, I left my dice way over here. That's not cool. Of course, I got to bring out my How to Host a Dungeon box with all my How to Host a Dungeon goodies. And let's pick a world number 5. We're getting the mountain world. This is interesting. I don't know how this will interact with the wizard. Huh. That might be one to look up then. All right. Well, we're going to... I'm using this kind of gray paper because I wanted to try and play with color a little bit tonight and see what kind of results I get. I have these awesome paint pens. They're a little messy, but I love to play with them. So we're going to have 6 underground zones here. I hope that's coming through so you can see it. So above ground will be zone 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think all these maps need to change so that I end up with 8 zones, because that's a nice dice rollable number. I'm going to make a note of that in my rules. Oh, cool. Yeah, isometric graph paper is pretty awesome. I fooled around with that for a while. Actually, I have a cool drawing here. Maybe if I can dig it out towards the end of the stream, I'll see if I can find it that I did isometric. I love isometric. It's like because you still get the dungeon layout kind of feeling of a classic dungeon map, but you also get to add in details. Like I just like even drawing like doors and stuff. Actually, what have I got here? I have one of my bookmarks. I don't know how well you can see that isometric. But it's fun because you get to draw all the doors and the furniture and more detail, always more detail. All right, so the primordial age for each of these regions underground, and I should explain this game a little bit just in case someone tunes in who's never seen it before. This is How to Host a Dungeon. This is a game where we create a vast underground labyrinth full of monsters, treasures, and terrors for brave adventurers to plunder or be killed in the process. We're creating a wizard civilization today to start our dungeon. So we've got this mountain. This is the surface. This is above ground. I'm just going to put a little blue sky there to kind of show the boundary. But first, before our civilization comes in, we're going to find out what lives under this mountain, what lies below the earth that is going to influence future events. So for each of these zones, we're going to roll to find out what's there. We'll roll a d10 to find out what shape it has, and another d10 to find out what it is. So the reddish d10 will be shape, and the pink veined one will be the feature. So we'll start zone 1. We don't roll for because it's above ground. Start with zone 2. So what we have here is an intrusion of water. So in this case, that's like an underground lake or river. So, and I'm going to take a little poetic license here and actually make this. So there's our intrusion. I'm going to make this a glacier because just because it's water doesn't mean it can't be ice. Let's go all out and give it a name. Ancient ice. At that time, far to the west of the Flaneas, two people were at war, the Bacluni and the Sulloise. The war reached its climax when both sides used powerful magic to obliterate each other in an event called the Twin Cataclysms. Awesome. All right, zone 3. An intrusion of tunnels, caves, or caverns. So an intrusion indicates a big contiguous body. So this means there's some kind of massive cave in here. I'll roll again to find out what is in this cave. 5, vegetation. So that's kind of interesting. I don't really have an idea for why this would be the case, but I'm going to make another parallel gap. Whatever strange process formed this mountain seems to have left these parallel gaps. And in here, I'm going to have some kind of weird forest, like a weird kind of fungalicious. So this is plant life from whatever ancient era this ice belongs to. I think this is kind of like the ancient lake under Antarctica, something from an era that has long vanished but is somehow preserved underground. Roots of a tree growing into a mountain. That's kind of cool. Hi, Dozer72. Welcome to the stream. That's kind of a cool idea. You could make some kind of myth maybe about how perhaps this world started as a mountain that was destroyed or removed or died away, but it left behind these roots, which are yeah, a giant tree like kind of like the Yggdrasil tree. I don't know. Let's keep that theme in mind and see where it goes. So now we have a vein following our route, and this vein is going to be a nexus. So the nexus, when you roll a nexus, you go to this additional table that has a bunch of different options. So this means something a little more unusual in this world. And what we have is intellect. There is a very ancient intelligence located in this spot. So I think I am going to make that some kind of root. What's a good color for it? I'll use this gray. So when you have a vein, you have a single line running basically through the zone. So I'm just going to kind of, and I'm going to go through the long way. You don't necessarily have to do it that way, but that kind of makes sense. But this is not just any vein. This represents some ancient intelligence that is still maintains consciousness. So I'm going to call this fungal forest the remnant. This pen loves to leak great gobs of white paint, so it's not very good for fine drawing, but it's fine for playtesting. And I am, yes, it is backwards, Phil. There is almost absolutely a setting to do that, which I'm going to have to figure out. I'm going to call this root the noetic fragment. When I play How to Host a Dungeon, I tend to get a little carried away. I doodle a lot. I name things. That's a great way to play this game, but it's absolutely not required. You can also just draw the stuff and see what you end up with. So don't feel like you have to play this the way that I play it. The whole idea is to play it as many different ways as possible. All right, section 5. 1, 3. So 1, 3 is a vein of gems. So gems are not generally vein-shaped themselves, but they can certainly form along veins. So I'm actually going to follow the shape of this level. So and then I'm just going to draw some gem shapes along it to indicate that there are gems here to be found. Yeah, the numbers and the words are backwards, aren't they? Yeah, that's a pain. I will spend 1 minute seeing if I can figure out how to reconfigure this, and if I can't, I'm just going to have to save it for next time. I believe there is a... Nope, we don't want that one. All right, hope that didn't make you seasick. All right, much better. I love drawing gems. All right, zone 6 is water again, but in this case it's a combination. It is a combination of an intrusion and a scattering. So this is open to interpretation, but I'm going to take that as a number of water-filled caves scattered across this zone. And I'm going to kind of purposely make them round. This is the Swiss cheese zone of the dungeon. Yeah, drawing game dice. I love those shapes. And in our last section, we've got another combination. This is gems again. So we've got a scattering combined with a network. So network is draw some meandering connected lines wandering through most of this strata. They could be looped, jagged curlicues, hatching, or whatever. That's kind of interesting. So what if, this is a small area, but what if they were actually kind of runic looking curlicues running through here with gems kind of marking the intersections, almost as though the very earth itself were a magical device of some sort. Surely that's preposterous. No one would believe such a tale. All right, I'm going to give these a little bit of more, darken them a little bit so that they can be more easily seen. I'm just going to call this runic. Plenty here to attract a wizard civilization, I think. So in the current draft of the rules, every zone does in fact get something. In the original How to Host a Dungeon, the way you set up the dungeon is you actually rolled dice on the page, and where the dice landed, things were. Which is a lot of fun, but it also tends to get messy if you start marking things with, if you're marking things with stones and then you're rolling dice and knocking the stones around. I like this because it gives a lot more density, and that seems to be a good thing for this game. You definitely want more, stuff. One interesting thing is, because this is a wizard civilization, the buildings are going to be buried at some point. So it's an interesting question. Well, how do we resolve that? Does the buried level become a new zone? So this will have 8 zones, which will be convenient for rolling dice for a random zone. That's an interesting thing to resolve. In fact, I'm going to make a note of that in my rules. How many zones do we need with wizard civilization? All right. The dwarves live for preposterous? Well, the more preposterous things, the better, I say. Try and believe 3 impossible things before breakfast. I don't remember who said that. All right, so the wizard civilization. I should point out, I'm looking at this piece of paper that says magician civilization for how to host a dungeon, because Phil always called it the magician civilization, and I immediately started calling it the wizard civilization. The effect of this is that On those semi-annual times when I decide to play with this civilization, I go searching through my files and I type wizard civilization, and I'm surprised that it doesn't come up on the search. So it's my own fault. All right. Magician's civilization. Draw a central pillar and label it the summoning stone. Draw a home for 2 magicians within 1 thumb of the summoning stone. Um, Perhaps we will give the starting home for magicians a special name. Phil has some suggestions here, but that's not decided. So the wizard or magician civilization should be pointed out. Functions by summoning demons. They summon demons to do their bidding, to mine resources, to build buildings for them. And sometimes these demons are well dealt with, and sometimes they're awkwardly bound away. When the number of demons bound away becomes too many, the civilization can come to an end. And I think there might be another ending circumstance for it too. So I think atop the tallest peak, we're going to put a summoning stone. I think I'm going to bring up my Wizard Civilization concept art and kind of look and see if there's one of these. So these are kind of a few different wizard concepts. The last time I drew a Wizard Civilization, I used this design. Does anyone have a favorite? Does chat want to vote on whether we should go with the Techno Wizards, the classic medieval castle, the crystals, the mushrooms, the demon heads, floating sky cities and domes, weird demon-haunted ziggurats? Any preferences? I'll give you guys a couple minutes to decide on that. One of the challenges of Twitch is that the stream actually runs several seconds behind, so I have to. MM Dozer likes the gems. I like gems. If we're going to do gems, I'll need some colors. Yes, we do have a fungal forest to work from. I'm just pulling out some gel pens here since I'm going to be drawing on this gray paper. I need some pens that will shine out. Yes, Phil, outvoted. There will be future opportunities. Let's go. All right, so try and make a crystalline structure on the highest peak. That's not terribly visible, is it? The summoning stone. All right, and now we need some wizard dwellings nearby. I'm actually going to kind of combine things here, and I'm going to give these wizards a floating island home with domes on it. And I'm going to choose one of Phil's suggestions for what to call it, the sanctuary. Yes, I am going. Actually, you're right. I should put tracing paper on now. That's a good point. Um, yeah, I'm going to do that. It'll take us a couple extra minutes because I have to kind of redraw some of this stuff, but I think that's okay. Thank you, Starhelm. Pink is an underused color, I think. So one thing that happens when I play How to Host a Dungeon, I make a lot of mistakes. I am terrible at following my own rules. Oops. Last time when we did this playtest, I did a ton of things out of order, and I'm chagrined every time I do it. But it just seems to be in my nature. I think I get excited, and then the details flee. Yeah, I do like that the summoning stone appears in the primordial age. I have a feeling it is something left behind by the world tree upon which this world was founded, which these wizards, coming perhaps from another dimension, found a use for. Perhaps this floating city was there before them too. Would be just like wizards to find a floating city and then just pretend they were the ones who built it. Can't trust those wizards. Hee, that's fun. All right, let's get some of the main landforms in here. We'll get the mountain in. The details underground, I think, don't need to be drawn until they are encountered. Ah, yes, an anchor. Good point. See, now that an anchor is drawn on the map, of course it's a mystical anchor. The shape of this anchor is actually also a rune of binding, naturally. Some party of adventurers is going to find that anchor someday and wonder what it's for. Try and carry it off or use it as the basis for some kind of magical ritual. All right. The summoning stone and the sanctuary of Kelmar. Actually, I should name some stuff after you guys. Starhelm got a order of warrior knights named after him the last time we did this. All right, wizards. Let's use yellow. All right, in the spring, the magicians invoke the devils. Add a white bead at the summoning stone. This is a devil. If there are already 6 devils bound in crypts, the 7th frees the rest and the civilization ends. I'm going to use black stones because I don't have white stones. In the summer, the magicians evoke their powers. They can send the devil to dig a tunnel up to 1 finger in length or extend an existing tunnel 1 finger, travel any distance along the tunnel and still act. If there's a source of ore, it can dig there and mine out a thumb's worth of ore. If there's gemstones, it can also dig and retrieve gems. If there's beasts, they can capture the beasts. They ignore plague. They can only do 1 task in summer, dig or retrieve. So, interesting, this noetic fragment here is a sentient fragment, but it's not resources of any value to the wizards, so they will ignore it. Also, vegetation is not a thing, or water, so really it's the gems that they are going to be interested in. So let's keep it interesting. So clearly the devil's going to start from the summoning stone. Let's use this brown for tunnels. And I think one finger will get us about that far. I think perhaps the devils may be in communication with the ancient intelligence that dwells there, but so far they're not able to do anything about it. And in the fall, the magicians hold a convocation. Add a new black bead to their numbers. They can raise any construction provided they have the proper resources, or they can bind the devils to raise an alternate construction. Note that 2 constructions, Lyceum Arcanum, blah, blah, blah. Ones that can only be built when they have a certain population. We'll get there. So this is kind of the tricky part. Right. So as the magicians explore this world, they mine out resources. When they mine out resources, they use those resources to build mystical sites and constructions. But when they do this, they have to do something with the devil, so they bind it away and forget about it. If they don't get any resources, then they just use the devil himself to build a building, or itself to build the building, which doesn't really pose a problem. So basically, the more resources the wizards get, they build interesting things, but it also hurries the end of their civilization. But at this time, they have not found any resources, so they take this devil and they bind him into a construction. And I'm getting ahead of myself. Also, I have to build a new wizard dwelling. So let's, on the slopes of the mountain, let's build a wizard dome. And yes, I know we are using a crystalline theme, so I will build a crystal flower within the dome for the new wizard to tend. Right, so one of the questions about this civilization is in what order do they build the buildings? And I think, Phil, the last time we talked about them just building the top, building from the top of the list down. So the first building that is built with a devil is a catacomb. So I think beneath this wizard dwelling, we will create a labyrinth of tunnels, all alike. They like to beguile any explorer, and that basically uses up this devil. Maybe the fiction here is that fulfills the devil's contract with the wizards, and the devil is sent away. Catacombe. So in the winter, the magicians revoke the devils. If the devil was not bound within a construction, draw a bead-sized crypt beneath the summoning stone and place that devil's white bead there. Up to 6 crypts can be delved, and the 7th ends the civilization. There we go. That's the end of a year. And this is also, the catacomb counts as a tomb, which I'm just going to use this kind of white X symbol to mark it. Tombs have effects. Certain monsters, such as undead, and certain villains make particular use of tombs, so they can affect how the game develops in the later ages. So, course of a turn. The course of a turn. A devil is summoned. Tunnels are dug towards usable resources. We do not reach them yet. the devil is bound into a new construction. The next construction is a labyrinth. Place a white bead in this to mark a treasure. Uh, some of these constructions will be below ground and some will be above ground. We just happen to be getting ones that are below ground currently. So let's put this labyrinth here at the devil's current location. So something I love drawing even more than gems are mazes. I totally need to include rules with the Minotaur that if there is a labyrinth already existing in the dungeon, they get some kind of bonus. And then more wizards come to join the fun. Let's build a crystal tower for these wizards. Ooh, I should totally try and emulate different crystal structures, like pointed crystals like quartz, square ones like pyrite. Yes, don't forget the convocation. Phil is my conscience. He keeps me in line for all the stuff that I constantly forget. Some white windows on there. Something I want to show you all. So this is a tourmaline. I'm a rock geek of sorts. I grew up in a gold mining town, and there were always lots of geologists around. And my dad's building, the floor below him was where the government geology office was. So I was always hanging out with geologists, and I love rocks. This is a tourmaline I found at a garage sale for like $8 on Capitol Hill. It's a black stone that likes to form octagonal crystals. We used to get these back home, but they were always so embedded in the rock you could never get them out. So I never found one I could have as my own, but now I have one. All right. More magicians. And the demon was bound into the labyrinth, so he's not a problem. But this year, the delving of the demons, perhaps as per their plans, reaches a gem deposit. They mine out an area about 1 thumb in size, which gets these 2 spots of gems, and those gems can now be used to build a wizard construction. So gemstones can be used to build an orrery. Okay. This labyrinth should have a treasure in it. I forgot that. An orrery. Dang, how do you draw an orrery? Jeez. Who made this game anyway? And yeah, I'm literally... So an orrery, which everybody probably already knows, is essentially a model of a solar system or a series of celestial objects such that you can rotate them and move them in relation to each other. And yes, these wizards just have a massive orrery mounted on the top of a mountain peak. I'm going to color the planets red because they're all made out of red gemstones that were mined out of this cave. I'll highlight a couple of them a little bit. the orrery. I'm also going to make a little bridge here over to that orrery and across this gap too. So a wizard can live at the orrery, which I think the next wizard that we bring in, we'll put him in there. We'll build a little outbuilding. I guess being a wizard in charge of an orrery is kind of like being a lighthouse keeper or something. All right, spring, summer, winter, constructions, right. So back to spring. Yeah, it is. Orrery is a. Let's try and say that like 20 times fast. I'm not gonna. Yeah, that was 3 years ago that you came up with this. Phil and I also worked extensively on a How to Host a Kingdom game, um, which we still have the notes for somewhere. It was a bit of a behemoth, but maybe someday we'll get that actually up and running too. That would be cool. Okay, so summon, convocation. Since a wizard can live here, we don't need to build a new home for this particular wizard. Then we dig. So now we run into a problem because the way the wizard civilization is written, each possible thing that the wizards can find has a construction. So when they find gems, they build an orrery. There is no other gem construction. So these rules don't really tell us what to do when our map has gems in it and nothing else the wizards are interested in. We could mine out more gems and say build more orreries, or we could say, oh, maybe they can substitute gems. When these rules for the magicians were written, the primordial age worked very differently. So, for example, there was no vegetation like this fungus forest here. So that's kind of an interesting question. It might be a time to come up with an idea for a direction for the magicians, to take. Kind of what I lean towards. I like that the wizards have a way they can use each resource that comes up. And so the more varied your resources are, the more varied the wizard constructions are, and what your primordial world looks like is going to affect what kinds of things the wizards build. So I think what these rules should move towards is there should be a way for the wizards to exploit each thing that is likely to come up, and maybe some things that are unlikely to come up, and that we should make the rules work appropriately. So, but first, I forgot a step. When the wizards mined out these gems and used them to build the orrery, it left the demon with no task to fulfill its contract. And so the wizards, who are kind of dicks, just lock it away in a magic circle deep below ground and forget about it. Because that's not going to have consequences, is it? So we now have one wizard on the map. Yeah, they can use water to build a fountain. Is water one of the... So the resources are gold, primordial beasts, gemstones, water. Yeah, so water is a resource that they can use. So you were thinking of this. Plant life is not one of the resources. Plague is, which is still in the game. So let's do water. So we'll do this in order. A demon is summoned and commanded to dig. The demon need not dig far to find water. But to live within the exact bounds of his contract, he does dig a tunnel exactly 1 figure long, because demons are nothing if not exacting to the terms of their contract. So, and this beautiful spherical chamber of water is dug out. When the demons find water, they build the Fountain of the Naiads, which can be either above or below ground. It seems obvious that it should be in this underground chamber. I know that I cannot draw something to quite live up to the name, the Fountain of the Naiads, but I'll give it a shot anyway. I'm going to draw these jets of water crisscrossing. This is one of my daughter's gel pens. It has silver sparkles in the ink because my daughter is 14 years old. A cordyceps fungus. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. What is that? That's not like a fungus that has hallucinogenic properties or something, is it? So this is probably a little bit too much detail for you to see very well. This fountain is not a thing of beauty, so I have decided it is a thing of music. It routes magically directed streams of water through resonating pipes to play an eternal song of glory. Eternal glory to what, you may ask? To the wizards, of course. Those guys only think of themselves. Oh, the zombie mushroom. Is that like a mushroom that, is that the one that infects like ants and makes them insane so they behave in a way that serves the mushroom's purposes but not the ants' purposes? That's kind of awesome. At some point, a party of adventurers will have to venture into the dungeon in search of the fabled, lost Fountain of the Naiads. So, water was found, and it was used, so the demon goes back in the box. One of the consequences of how this this magician civilization works is if there are lots of things close together, then the wizards will build lots of stuff, and then when they run out of stuff, they'll slowly start building up wizards. The last time I played this, it was kind of a more scattered map, so they would build something, and then they would have to bind a demon because it was a long tunnel to the next thing, and then they would build something, and then it would be a long time. So, next turn. Summon a demon. Do we dig first or do we convocation first? Then we dig. Then we have a convocation. Let me see if I can draw a tourmaline. This is a tourmaline with a garden on top. And in this lives a wizard. Now, the next construction that is built using a devil is the Umphalos, deep below the earth. It is alternate names, Pillars of the World, or, Earth Root. Oh, this is about the fungus. Kills things and animates the corpses. Ah, cool. Yeah, I haven't played The Last of Us. I saw that people were playing it on Twitch, though. Um, Yeah, that's awesome. It's actually it's not awesome. It's scary, terrifying. So the wizards are going to build the Earth route on this route that is sentient. So I guess this is the place where the wizards attempt to commune with the ancient roots of the world tree, long thought dead or mythical, but it turns out still there. How will this change wizard civilization? Will they learn from it? Will they become even more bold and full of hubris? Who can say? Um, a demon is expended in this construction. However, I did forget that the last construction I made used water, so the demon should have stayed around. So let's make a demon tomb over here with a glyph of containment in it. So you see, the thing is, the demons know that the wizards know that there are 8 runes of demon containment. What the wizards do not know is that the 8th rune is a counterfeit. So the demons know that when 7 demons have been bound, soon the wizard civilization will be overwhelmed. All right, let's build another wizard house. There's nothing green on this map yet. It's looking a little Steven Universe there, maybe. Wish I had more shades of green. There's one. Yeah, Phil is pointing out an interesting fact, which is that the constructions are actually in pairs. So the umphalos, sorry, the pillars, sorry, the earth root, as we are calling it here. I'm really glad you included alternate names for these. At the time, I think maybe we were just brainstorming, but it actually gives you a chance to name it according to the flavor of the map, which is really cool. Yeah, so this is the thing that I actually missed. Um, the the orrery is what the wizards build when they find gemstones. The umphalos is a thing they can build if they don't find gemstones, so they're actually mutually exclusive, which makes the wizard civilization even more a factor of um, what is on the map. So I missed that. I'm actually going to draw some thick lines on my printout here so I can see how these are paired. Right, so I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this, but so that's the orrery, which is paired with gemstones, and the umphalos. So if the orrery is built, actually the umphalos does not get built, is the original intention. So uh, that means you have to make sure there are enough things for them to build so that if everything's on the map, they still have something to build, or maybe there's some kind of default thing they build when they run out. So that's an interesting design problem to approach. I'm just going to make a note on my rules here that those are meant to be exclusive. So for example, we have catacombs. Catacombs are paired with the mausoleum, which is built when they find gold. So there is no gold, so they would build they would build a catacomb. And likewise, the labyrinth is paired with primordial beasts, so it's what they build if they can't build a menagerie, which they do build if they find beasts. So um, I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on that. So the wizards have summoned. They have the Emerald Wizard has joined them in this world. The demon continues. I am totally going to have it dig into the fungal forest here, even though I don't have a wizard thing for fungus. I'm just going to see what the best thing we have is, or maybe we'll just make one up. So the wizards discover this weird phantasmagorical forest of fungus left behind by a sentient tree, perhaps children of the ancient tree. Um, well, we do have the witchwood, which is a thing that wizards can build. Always a favorite of mine. It's paired with plague. It's what they build if there's no plague on the map. So um, I don't know. Does anyone have a suggestion for what construction the wizards build when they find a fungus forest? It's totally a pot shop, isn't it? Yeah, so if you're not from Seattle, marijuana was legalized in the state a while ago, and I have two pot shops within 4 blocks of my house, which is kind of funny. Yeah, they would run out of buildings before they reach population 10, and maybe that's fine. That could work just fine. They're already at 7, so they're doing pretty well. I also like having them only exploit each resource once, which I think was the original intention, because it leaves all these gems for monsters to mine out when the monster age comes. All right, fine. Witchwood. It is a witchwood. The witchwood is above ground construction. So I'm going to do something a little funky because I'm running out of space. I'm going to build a floating island, which the wizards they've now figured out how to build these for themselves. They're not as elegant as the ancient ones. You see these fungi, um, they have the potential to be very dangerous. They're an invasive species, which is why the wizards have put them under a dome, because, that can't go wrong, because the wizards know exactly what they're doing. But yeah, having this witchwood right here. See, it's floating because then it's isolated from the surface, right? It's safer that way. Yeah, I don't think anyone knows what a witchwood is. That's why it's so awesome. Let's you have to cross this sky bridge to get there. It's an enchanted rope bridge, since physics would never do to get you up there. All right, so we found resources, so the demon must be bound away in a prison. I'm just trying to make sure all these rooms have a different shape. Let's also just get some yellow going here, and maybe creeping down this way. So the underground vegetation is quite interesting in the Monster Age because there are a few monster groups that can exploit it to great effect to expand their numbers. Oh yeah, a super terrarium or something. Exactly. We were totally on the same page with that one, Starhelm. Okay, so let's do this in order. Summon, dig, convocation, build. So summon, dig. Okay, so now the wizards have a bit of a problem because they have exploited one of every resource that is in here, but they're going to keep trying because they believe that beyond this fungal zone, more wonders may be found, but they have not found them yet. So they use this demon to construct something. Convocation, sorry. Let's do the convocation. Let's go orange. So let's see. If there is magma, we can build a Cyclops forge, which is what I got the last time I tried this civilization out. If we don't have magma, we can have an alchemist's foundry, which is an above-ground construction. It also has a white bead to indicate a great treasure. We don't have a ton of room on the surface, but that's fine. This is turning into a bit of a wizard metropolis. We're going to have a foundry here. Some smokestacks on the top. So basically when this is buried, and when the civilization ends, right, this is going to become basically a dungeon level with this wizard housing, this foundry, this building made of tourmaline, and so on. That's kind of the idea, I think. So the wizards are nearing their maximum population. Um, Haha, and I also realized that I missed another rule, which is when they reach population 6, they have a special building that they build. Um, the Lyceum Arcanum. Well, maybe I'll build that next since I missed it. So we summon a demon. We dig out this way. We are disappointed to find only ice. Perhaps the wizard's scrying indicated something different from water, but they failed to account for the fact that it could just be a different state of matter. So the Lyceum Arcanum. This is basically like a big wizard, I guess like a wizard college, just a large building with enough room for 2 wizards to live in, beneath the summoning stone. I'm just going to kind of say that it hollows out this mountain here. So I guess it's what, Wizard XCOM headquarters or something. But in this case, the demon is actually bound within it, even though it requires no resource. So I read that as saying that this demon actually stays on the map. Perhaps in violation of the demon contract, further raising animosity between the demons and the wizards. All right. Demon. Another entrance to the dungeon. I'm going to do a little... Perhaps there are some ice caves that they discover branching out from here. This is not just solid ice. I'm just going to leave that idea there for a future age. Let's get a little dark blue in there so those are more visible on the stream. Then a convocation. Space is getting sparse. The gold wizard must build upwards for his tower. Population of 9. Um, the Warlock's Court is a construction that corresponds to Mithril. Um, I don't know what a Warlock's Court is, but maybe when you have enough Warlocks, you start needing a way for them to arbitrate their differences. This is also going to be a... It's actually this like iron spire. There's like a spiral staircase up in there. Actually what it looks like to me is it's a place for wizards to have duels. I think for wizards, a court of law is a court of spells. And the demon is sent on. So now a new demon is summoned. A wizard arrives. Hey, I have a silver pen. This wizard lives... sorry, the Alchemist's Foundry is supposed to have a treasure in it. This wizard lives in a simple black cube of metal. Wouldn't it be interesting if that one last wizard stayed in the world in order to meet adventurers in later days? He knows of the ancient times, for he was there. All right, so now the wizards reach a population of 10. When they reach a population of 10, they build the Heavenly Spire. Must have a population of 10. Once this is built, the civilization ends. I think this is the point where the wizards finally decide that they're big enough to take on the gods themselves and are cast down and destroyed. Their perfect science of magic is broken so that future ages have only spell books and spells that can only be temporarily memorized as per Dungeons & Dragons magic user rules, etc. So, boy, where am I going to put this? It seems like it should be over the summoning stone, but I think that sort of could spoil, kind of spoils the symmetry. I'm actually going to put it way over here. The spire. All right, and the wizard civilization comes to an end. But we definitely should do the tracing paper thing. End of the civilization. Let's see. This talks about how many devils can be bound before the civilization ends. A new surface level is drawn. Maybe the Heavenly Spire is poking above that level, of course. Phil says, maybe roll a d6 and mark that number of magician buildings as tombs. But if all the magicians live in either the top home building or the Lyceum, then perhaps only those are tombs. Yeah, that is a good point. I kind of lean towards having some of the constructions be tombs, like the catacombs are a tomb. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna make 1d6 tombs on this, and then maybe it's only 8:15. We can do a little monster age, and I'll use a bunch of undead and see how that goes. We'll have 4 tombs. Okay, so one thing these rules do not say is whether these demons stay here. I think they probably go, because that would be a lot of monsters to leave on the map. Certainly the treasures stay. If we roll up a wizard as a monster in the monster age, he's totally living there because he's the last wizard, the last true wizard who can cast spells intuitively without having to memorize them. Um, I'm just going to make a mark here and here to remind me where the treasures go. Tracing paper. Zoom out a little bit. Let's take one last look at our handiwork before we move on, though. I like this. I really like how this turned out. This is awesome. Thank you for being a part of it. Do I have a good blue in here that I can kind of shade in behind these buildings? Wizard duels are the best duels. So here's a challenge for you. Has anyone yet made a game about wizard duels that is adequate to the task? That is good enough to be the game about wizard duels? I think the Battle of the Wizards duel at Mount Skullsfire, if you've played that, I think that's a pretty good one. It's totally wacky, not at all serious, but it is a lot of fun. I can think of a couple others. All right, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'm just going to go grab a drink and take a bathroom break. So talk amongst yourselves. Just catching up on the trap on the chat. Yeah, the rules do not specify what happens with the bound demons. I think probably they just go away, but there might be some interesting things, like maybe certain buildings. Like if there's one bound in the bottom of the summoning stone, maybe he stays as a primordial monster or something, for example. Yeah, if there were more than six, they all break free. That totally makes sense. Battle Wizards. I think I've played that once, but I don't really remember it. I grabbed Epic Spell Wars of the Battle Wizards duel at Mount Skullsfire. This is a fun, crazy game. It's as fun just for the characters of the wizards. Actually, it would be interesting to play this Wizard's Age if you came up with a randomly generated wizard name for each and every wizard on the map. I guess that would tell you what the characteristics of their home base would be, right? Like pissed or the pissed wizard. Okay, that's a little silly, even for a silly D&D game. But right, like if you find his ancient home, it could be a brewery. The less said about Faye Ticklebottom, the Enchanter, the less. I know that Phil always plays Krastar when we play this. Krastar, the Bloodomancer. Anyway, this is not how to host a dungeon. Yes, yeah. Okay, so it's the same game you were talking about. There's another one, I can't remember what it's called. It has a lot of randomness, but there is some strategy too, where you have like the board is a series of rooms and your spells are cards and they're fairly wild and random, so you have to kind of build a strategy around the crazy cards you happen to draw. Maybe it'll come to me before the end of the evening. So I've probably got about 30 minutes before my daughter calls me to be picked up from her art group. But let's do a little Monster Age in the meantime and see where it takes us. I hear your Krastar. So one of the rules of Battle Wizards of Mount Skullsfire is that the rules say you have to read your spell in your best wizard voice. So I can just hear Phil's Krastar voice in my head taunting me right now. Okay, so we start with a new surface level. So I'm just gonna do it. In fact, I'm gonna say, because what better place for a vanished wizard civilization than desert? Trackless desert. Endless yellow sands to the horizon. But beneath, untold treasures. So I'm going to make this mountain line now. This is now a zone boundary. I will reprise the zone boundaries because we use those again in the Monster Age. So this replaces the rule in the old How to Host a Dungeon where you'd roll the dice to see where the monsters arrive. Now you just roll for a random zone. It's not quite as fun, but it is a lot more sustainable because then you don't have your dice knocking things around and causing confusion. So the surface is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a very convenient number. Yeah, I think we played that Wizard Duel game at Mock's Boarding House with Brandon one night. But I don't remember what it was called. So now we don't necessarily draw in all of these rooms until monsters encounter them, but we decided that some of them are going to be tombs, 4 of them, in fact. So, and let's do this. So The remains of this tower do stick above the ground. That is now a dungeon entrance, a haunted and ghostly place. I think that in their hubris, at the end, in their battle with the gods, the wizards shattered the stone. Now its fragments are scattered across the land. Perhaps valuable treasure. Hey, here's a trivia for you. There was a stone in Tutankhamun's crown, which was it's actually a bizarre piece of glass, and it comes from the Sahara Desert. Is the only place in the world where this particular stone is found, and it's actually only found in this massive ancient meteorite crater where the desert sand fused into glass of a particular color and shade. And I think it actually has a name. I can't remember what it is, but I just think it's super cool that Tutankhamun had a piece of meteorite glass in his crown. So I'm going to sketch in some of these rooms. I'm not going to use a super dark color. I just want to suggest them. I think I've got yeah. And I'm going to choose them kind of at random. So there is no, that's not dark enough. Tracing paper is not the best material to draw on. It's not very porous, and so the color is not bold. The ink does not dry, so it smudges. So one thing I would love to figure out is a better material than tracing paper for this, but I have not come up with it. So within the Tourmaline realm, mansion, there lies a tomb. The inner sanctum of the Emerald Wizard is a tomb. The fallen fragments of the Sky Island, yet within them one of the domes remained uncracked. It is a tomb. Perhaps when wizards die in a certain way, it creates a tomb of some specific magical importance. Or maybe if you're a wizard of a certain power, your soul never quite completely dies, and so some fragment is still there, attracting the energies of death. I like that. Yeah, it might be in Libya. There's a book, I think, if you have not already encountered at Starhelm, that I think you would enjoy, called Atlas Obscura, which is just it's got these one paragraph things of all these weird, bizarre places throughout the world. And some of them are really crazy, and some of them are just kind of curious. Like the Fremont Troll in Seattle is one of the places that's in the book. It's pretty cool. All right, so let's at least start up a Monster Age here. So I've got my Monster Age cards, but I'm going to pick and choose because you're supposed to do this randomly, but it's totally legit to pick and choose. So let's get a couple of undead in here, because that is appropriate. I think I've got, yeah, skeletons. That's my other undead, and I'll draw a couple of random ones too. So we've got the Order of Starhelm and some troglodytes. And now with the magic of Logitech, will make it so you can even kind of see those. There. It's low tech, but it works. Yeah, Atlas Obscura. They have a website too where they or a blog or a Tumblr or something. All right, so we'll just go in order. So the skeletons. I hope I have a D8 here. I haven't returned my dice since playing in a Wicked Age this week. Start in region number 5. Now, on skeletons it says if there is a tomb near where the skeletons spawn, they spawn in the tomb. And there is the ancient catacombs. So let's redraw some of these catacombs. So there's this bottom chamber here. I'm going to even expand these a little bit because why not? So the skeletons live here, surrounded by ancient wizard treasures that they cannot enjoy. Vampire. Vampire will start in region 8, so in the ancient gemstone mines. If there's a tomb near where that's skeletons, it should say vampire. He spawns in a tomb. If there isn't, their spawning location becomes a tomb. So I think this is in fact a gem-shaped chamber. If it wasn't before, the vampire has carved it out because why not? So vampire is, let's do him in red. He is an alpha predator, and man, he is a rich monster. Troglodytes. Area number 1. The troglodytes live on the surface in the ancient deserts. Interesting for a race of amphibians. We'll have to figure that one out. Remnants of a once great civilization, the troglodytes have been shunned by other races and driven underground. I wonder, were they the servants of the wizards, perhaps? Or perhaps they claim to be the last remnant of the wizards. Anyway, they clearly live in a city of pyramids near the fallen spire. Troglodytes will be orange. And finally, the knights. The knights always spawn on the surface. When they spawn, they build a chapter house for their order. This is kind of interesting. I kind of want to know what the story is behind this order of knights who have a chapter house basically in the middle of the desert. I mean, are they desert knights? That could be cool. Or are they knights from somewhere else who came to the desert? Perhaps they are exiles, right? Like exiled lords, people who failed in some task, and so like the wall in Game of Thrones, right? Troglodyte literally means cave dweller. I did not know that. That is interesting. I feel like I need to work that into the monster now, somehow. Even if it says something like, troglodytes always dig a new natural cave to live in or something. So the wizards start with a big population, with a 4 population, and a bonus marker. So this is a new thing to How to Host a Dungeon V2. In How to Host Dungeon V1, there were monsters and treasures only. This introduces a new kind of marker, which I use these little plastic coins that I cut into fragments for. When a monster group has a bonus marker, that means it has like some power or magic or preparation that gives an advantage against its foes. It always gets a +1 to a die roll, which is not a huge deal, but it can make the difference. Some monster groups also can do something special when they have a bonus marker. a schism with the main branch of the order. Yeah. Huh. Like they want to get back to the basics of knights fighting monsters and living out their life, dying in battle instead of dying in their beds, maybe. That's interesting. Maybe if they can amass enough treasure. The knights, it would actually be cool if they had something where if they amass enough um, treasure or kill enough monsters, they leave the map or found a city or something. I don't know. There could be some cool thing. I'm going to make a note of that. Like if they complete a great quest or something. Okay, so now these monsters take their turns. In the Monster Age and How to Host a Dungeon version 2, the monsters have a number of actions. The skeletons are a bad example. Um, these are all pretty bad examples, but we'll use the knights. So they have something they always do. The knights always explore. They always look for new monsters to fight. Then they have an if. For the knights, if there's only one knight left, they increase their numbers by one. So every monster, with a few exceptions, has a choice. And then there are a number of things they can do, and you choose the one that you think is the best. This is a difference from the first version of this game where there were basically no choices. The monsters were essentially robots. The only choices came from the fact that the map was sometimes kind of vague and you had to make an interpretation. So, skeletons. Skeletons do not have an always action. This is to kind of reflect the fact that skeletons can be very passive and inert until they're messed with. If they destroy a monster group, their numbers increase, and then they have some options. One of the options is do nothing, but we're not going to do nothing because something has awakened the skeletons, and they are scouting. So they scout. When a monster group scouts, it explores in all directions. So I think they start to explore the rooms of this purple wizard. And yeah, they basically expand their territory. The vampire always hunts for creatures that have blood. The vampire has no prey available to him currently. If there are any intelligent groups available, they can recruit them. But there is nothing for them to recruit, so things are pretty quiet. One thing the vampire can do is hatch plans, which gives them a bonus. So basically, he's just down there planning for some future event. Yeah, Phil, when I made the troglodytes, I was really grasping for what makes troglodytes an interesting, like, what do I make their life cycle be? Because I just couldn't come up with a picture in my head of what sets troglodytes apart and makes them interesting. So maybe we should come up with something, and maybe they'll rewrite D&D troglodytes to be more like our troglodytes. Um, Remnants of a once great civilization, the troglodytes have been shunned by other races and driven underground, is what I have written for them. But they're currently living on the surface, so maybe they were driven into the wilderness. I don't know. They always exploit ore. I have not figured out what their if action is yet, but they can harvest vegetation. So there's no ore for them to exploit on this map, but perhaps I will have them explore. Because if they can get down here, they can start harvesting this vegetation. So I think they venture down the endless stairway and discover that there are whole worlds below ground. Maybe the knights will drive them underground and they will live out their destiny that way. Finally, the knights. The knights always explore because they're always looking for someone to make trouble with. I'm just going to show they explore like a finger. I'm going to draw a knight flag. I believe an Oreo flame might be the correct term, to show how far they got into the desert on this turn. So, a very quiet turn. Orcs. Orcs are one of my favorites. Orcs show up in zone number 4. How do they show up? They tunnel in from off the map, of course. They find these caves and they say, ah, boys, there'll be treasure to exploit and monsters to fight in these caves. So orcs always extort or fight their neighbors. They have none yet. These are, I just realized, I'm using old monster. This is not the latest orcs. Ah, that's a problem. Huh, Phil is sharing scientific facts. That is very interesting. Okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes trying to figure out why I have the wrong monster cards. If I can't find them, I'm just going to continue because there's no use spending a lot of our time hunting for things on my shelf. So why do I write games which are so much about making stuff up on the fly? It's because I'm terrible at preparation. I always get it wrong. I always forget something or misplace something. Well, I think the newest monster cards must be on my desk upstairs because I was intending to incorporate new edits from the last playtest. But that's okay because I have them on this computer. I can just open them and work from that. OBS, which is the software that I use to stream, really really puts a performance hit on my computer. So even looking for files is takes a minute or two for the computer to respond. Apologies for this delay. Yes, the August Monster card draft. Here it is. I normally wouldn't even make a big fuss about it, but the purpose of this is to play test. Yeah. Okay, so orcs. They always extort or fight their neighbors if they can find them. If they can't, they can either breed, explore, search for allies, or build defenses. I think they're going to explore because they want neighbors to make trouble with. That's what they do. So 1, 2, 3, 4 that way. 5, 6, 7, 8 that way. They go this way. I guess I need to make a home base for them too. So we need 4 rooms. Orcs, we'll use purple. All right. Yeah, I love watching Twitch and just sketching or doodling. I find it super. I really like listening to something and then drawing. It's like I draw better when my listening brain is busy somewhere else. Okay, vampire first. So the vampire doesn't do much when he doesn't have neighbors. He doesn't even have a scout or an explore action, which most monsters have, but I think that's fine. Vampires are very patient. They don't go looking for trouble. Trouble will eventually find them. So there's nothing for him to hunt, nothing for him to recruit. I think he's just going to sit there with his plans. It's fine if some of the monsters are fairly passive, um, but it's not great if all of them are. So that's something to tune. All right, troglodytes. I think they will continue their program of exploration. So I'm just going to draw some rooms here. I think this is the right shape for chambers of the, and eventually they find the ancient magma forge with its treasure. And since this is apparently how these troglodytes live, they build a pyramid for it and take it home. Troglodyte turn. The knights. The knights explore. They reach the edge of troglodyte territory, and they fight the most powerful group yet encountered. So, some dice. That's 2 different color dice here. So, the knights have a bonus, so they get +1 to their die roll. The current system I'm working with is the most populous group also gets +1 to their dice roll. And the knights are the most populous, so they'll actually get +2. So the knights are rocking it here. Black die is the knights, and they totally enter an ancient pyramid, find it full of troglodytes, and slay some. I'm just going to put 1 knight to show how far they have explored in the world. I could also argue that there's a dungeon entrance here, so they could probably come down here and encounter some stuff underground too. Maybe they will next turn. And finally, the skeletons. They're going to continue to scout. So they find the first room of this purple tower that is buried beneath. The Warlock Court. Is there, I mean, maybe it's just completely buried. I'll just kind of leave it open what that looks like now. Yeah, I think that's, maybe they find the beginnings of this bridge, which may still be a passable tunnel. And finally, the orcs. Yeah, I think they'll keep looking for trouble. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This time, they come in this direction, which brings them to the troglodytes, which means they don't fight because orcs fight first in the turn, so that means they can fight these guys next turn. Looks like I'm getting a text. I better check and make sure this isn't my daughter wanting a pickup. Okay. Yeah, I think probably we'll get 2 more turns of this in, so this may not be a terribly eventful monster age, but it's a useful test. All right, and then a new monster group arrives. Part of the economy of this game is, of course, each new monster group that arrives brings in treasure. There are more things that bring treasure in. There are a few things that take treasure out, but very few. So it kind of drives the game to a point where there's so much treasure that eventually someone is going to get enough to become an alpha villain. All right. Umber Hulk arriving in area number 5. Area number 5 is this whole region here. He could land right on top of the orcs, but I think he is an Umber Hulk. Umber is an earth tone, so he arrives at the earth root. Perhaps he arrives out of it. Perhaps the Umber Hulks have some connection with the ancient sentience that lives below the ground. I was reading about Umber Hulks, and apparently there's a little bit of D&D canon that Umber Hulks are often enslaved by illithids. So that's an interesting thing. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but that is an interesting idea that could be developed further. This is a green Umber Hulk. Umber Hulks start with a bonus token. To reflect their magical confusing attack effect. On an Umber Hulk turn, they always hunt. He has no prey, but they also may scout. So the difference between scout and explore is explore goes one direction far, scout goes all directions short. Vampire, sorry, not terribly much happening there. Orcs. Orcs can extort a wealthy neighbor or fight a numerous neighbor. Well, the troglodytes have two treasures, so I think they're going to extort. The orcs are more populous, so they get +1. Black die is the orcs. The orcs fail. So instead of successfully extorting, an orc is killed by the angry troglodytes. Why are you shouting Earthroot? Did I say something else? I probably did, didn't I? Sometimes when monster groups fight, I like to put a little, I draw a little sword on the map to show where the battle took place. Just because it's kind of fun to keep track of where the carnage happens. The Trogs. They have no ore to exploit. They may fight a group that has attacked us. If they get a ton of treasure, they can build an idol, actually, which is kind of an interesting action for them. But I think they're gonna fight. They're just gonna press their advantage. This is gonna be a fight to the death. The dice are even now. Black die is the attackers, which is the troglodytes, and a 6-1. Yeah, I think they take it right back to the orc tunnels, and there's a pitched battle, and some orcs are killed. The knights. Well, they always explore, so I think the shattered carcass of the summoning stone provides a path into the earth. So down here they find the ruins of the Lyceum, this ancient tomb with the demon summoning circle, now mysteriously empty, but nobody to fight. So I think they are going to just continue to fight the troglodytes. The knights have +2, more population, and a bonus marker. Black die is the knights. It is a tie. Ho ho. So currently the attacker wins ties, but I do want I want something special to happen when there's a tie. So, but that's just a note for now. The troglodytes. This is turning into a real bloodbath. And the skeletons. Scout. I'm actually going to fudge things a bit because time is short to have them encounter the Umber Hulk. They may fight a group that is not undead. So normally when I have fight rules, I have that. Sorry, I have to remember how my own rules work. Alpha predators get +2 in conflicts. That's the rule. So the Umber Hulk is rolling at +2, +3 because he has that. Fighting alpha predators is bad news. But the dice can go any way you want. So black die is the skeletons. 6 to 5, the skeletons kill the Umber Hulk. His bonus avails him nothing at all. Uh, if the skeletons destroy a monster group of any creature that has bones, add 1 to the skeletons. Now, an Umber Hulk skeleton. Awesome. This rule needs to be written a little bit differently because the if happens before the fighting. And that's very unclear. Yeah, the vampire yeah, contemplating the death of all life. I've got a plan for it. See? Someday it will come to pass. Yes, the Umber Hulk should absolutely come from the Earth Root. That is better Umber Hulk lore than just randomly deciding the Illithids enslaved them at some point. Nope. And there's the text from my daughter telling me it is time to go pick her up from her art group. So thank you, everybody, for joining me for this playtest. That was a real blast. I think we came up with some cool stuff. I'm going to leave this out here and maybe I'll have some time to finish it off tomorrow, but it would have to be at a random time just because I got a busy schedule this week. I'm really happy with where this game is going, and the Wizard Civilization is really cool. So um, have a good night. I'm going to sit here and clean up for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to hit the road. Okay, see you soon. I know what we need to do here. We need to take a picture of this. That is what we need to do. And put it on the Twitter. Another playtest done. Video on Twitch soon. All right, good night. The Magician Civilization concept art will be posted to Patreon at some future time. Um, hopefully soon. I want to color it first. Yes, after I've included it in the final game. Yeah, I'll definitely post it on Patreon, and it will also be publicly available as part of the development process. Um, as I come up with a first draft of those rules, or as we come up, because hey, we should just have a burger and a beer and talk about those rules sometimes soon. So, magicians rule, monsters drool. Yes. Thank you, Dozer. Yes, this game is definitely intricate on purpose. I wouldn't advise anyone else to necessarily make a game that is this intricate. But if you do, I might want it because I love intricate. All right, gotta run. Good night.